Yes, sir.
I'll call the City Council meeting for April 28, 2009 to order of the Newport Beach City Council. Do we have the roll call, please?
The record will reflect that all members of council are present except for Councilmember Daigle, who has an excused absence.
Thank you. Do we have a closed session report from the City Attorney's Office?
Mr. Mayor, the council met in closed session to discuss the matters that are revealed or set forth on our open session agenda, and I would point out no reportable action was taken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Henn, followed by the invocation by Father J. Van Iliano from HOAG Memorial Hospital.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads. Creator of the world, in your wisdom and love to your creation, you surround us with the mysteries of the universe. In times long past, you sent us gifted men and women to bear witness to your great wisdom. You gave us marvelous example of charity, love, and healing to all humankind. Bestow your greatness to these dedicated men and women as they gather together with their knowledge and wisdom to work for the betterment of our community and nation. When they meet tonight, give them clear mind and discerning hearts so that they may serve well their constituents and community. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Okay, the first item on tonight's agenda is actually going to be item number 15 on the agenda. It's an item that was set for a time certain public hearing at 7:01. This is the hearing required pursuant to the Municipal Improvement Act of 1913, Article 13D of the Constitution of the State of California, and Chapter 15.32 of the City Code. This is the time and the place fixed for the public hearing on protests or objection to the resolution of intention, assessment engineer's report, proposed assessments, and all other matters relating to Assessment District Number 87, Balboa Island, and to the designation of the area as an underground utilities district. All written protests and ballots regarding the Assessment District Number 87, Balboa Island, must be received by the City Clerk prior to the close of the public hearing this evening. So if anyone has any ballots they want to submit, they need to bring them forward and give them to the City Clerk prior to the time I close the public hearing tonight. We're going to start off with a presentation by our staff and consultants on the Assessment District, and then we'll open it up for public comment at the public hearing portion of the meeting. So at this time, I'll ask Joan Cox to step forward. There she is.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Tonight is the night for the public hearing. It's been a very long process. So I have a brief presentation just to take you through.
Can you tell everyone who you are, please?
I apologize. I'm Joan Cox with Harrison Associates, and I'm your assessment engineer on this project. Now, tonight we're going to discuss a few items: the description of the district, the improvements to be funded, costs of the district, the basis of the assessment, the legal formation procedure, and go into construction timing. And then, of course, we'll be available to answer your questions. Now, the boundaries of the district is Big Balboa Island. And on the island, we have a number of property uses and sizes. We have about 41% single-family residential parcels ranging from size of 900 square foot to 5,200 square feet lots. Multiple residential parcels, we have about 53%, and those range from 1,200 square foot lots to 5,500 square foot lots. And then we have about 6% non-residential parcels ranging from 1,200 to 12,000 square foot lots. Now, the assessment district is going to be funding trenching and installation of the vaults, undergrounding of the utility lines, removal of those wires and poles, and repaving of the affected roadways and alleys. The city funded improvements in conjunction with this project would be water systems upgrades, about $2 million, sewer system upgrades on the island, about $700,000, street and alley improvements, the city shares of those, about $1.5 million, and then you have the city's share of the assessment for their properties. They have 3 properties. That's about $140,000. So the total city contribution to the entire project that's going to be Balboa Island is almost $4 million. Now, we have had some changes to the engineer's report since it was presented to you a couple months ago. We've corrected one parcel size, so assessment number 1130. They contacted us and reduced that parcel size from 2,500 square feet down to 1,500 square feet. And what that did, it reduced the total amount of the assessment by about $6,500. So that's why the bottom line assessment amount is going to be different than what you saw before. We also revised the estimated utility contribution for the equivalent new overhead system. And this is something that the utility companies are required to contribute to the project and required by the California PUC. And based on Edison's estimates, that cost is about $2.7 million. So that's now reflected in the engineer's report. There is no change to the assessment bottom line because we reflect that in the actual total cost of the project. And the credit was already reflected in the invoice you got from Edison. But this is just additional documentation that they did provide and will be providing this type and amount of contribution. And with these changes, I feel that the assessments are appropriate and appropriately spread. Now, the cost of the district, the construction costs about $16.4 million, incidental expenses run about $1.3 million, and the prepaid financing costs are estimated about $2.7 million, for a total of about $20.4 million. And this does not include the private service conversions that the private properties will be doing. Now, as you know, because you've gone through this a lot, my job as assessment engineer is to apportion that $20.4 million to all the properties within the assessment district based on proportional benefit. Now, the specific benefits that we've identified for utility undergrounding are aesthetics to the streetscape, service connection reliability, and again, this is not to say that the utility companies have unreliable service. This is an enhancement in the service by virtue of reducing that the factor of wind, weather, earthquake, whatever, taking down those power lines and poles. Could be traffic-related issues, but there's that additional service reliability because they're not overhead. Same thing with the additional safety. We're not saying that it's not safe. We're saying that this is an additional safety, an enhancement of the safety of the system that's out there. Now, this is one island. The entire island is being underground, so all the properties receive the same level of benefits relating to these 3 benefits. But to apportion the cost to each of the properties, we really spent a long time and a lot of time looking at the different apportionment methodologies specifically to spreading to the cost. Now, Little Balboa Island was brought up by the residents when they were talking to us. That was based on a zoning type benefit. It turned out to be more of a per parcel benefit because the assumption by the engineer was that all properties were zoned single family residence, so they assessed all the properties the same. Here, as you saw before, there's a big mixture in the type of land uses, the size variations. It just didn't seem appropriate to do that. Another districts you've done have done more of a frontage basis. Frontage basis works great when you have a very linear project. We don't have that here. We have a lot of odd-shaped parcels. We have just myriad. We have corner lots. That's where it really doesn't work well. So that didn't make sense in this. But property size is what we settled on as the most fair and appropriate way of estimating the benefit for each of the properties. The size of the property really is what limits what can be done with the property, the amount of development on that property. So we use the parcel size in square foot. We rounded it to the nearest 100 to take away any of those little discrepancies that might occur because of calculations of these odd-shaped lots. And the typical standard lot for the island is about 2,600 square foot lot. And just to note that this methodology does conform with the council's guiding principles for the assessment districts. Now, with all these costs and spreading and everything, what it turns out is 86% of the parcels pay $16,782 or less. So it worked out that that's the apportionment. We do have 14% that are paying more than that. Residential parcels range from 5,800 to 35,000. Non-residential parcels range from about 14.8 to 49.7. So there's a wide variety and a wide range, but 86% of the properties will be paying $16,782 or less. And we've actually provided an estimated annual payment up there. It's based on a 15-year bond, assumes 5.75% interest. This, we actually don't know what the interest rate's going to be. This is what we're estimating now, but the bond market is very fluid. We won't know what the interest rate is until we actually sell those bonds. But this is just what we put this down there and documented what our estimate was, just so that we could, make these statements and protect ourselves, and just to not let anybody think that we've said this absolutely is what the annual payments are going to be. And this is, of course, if it's paid on the property tax bill. Just a table to show what the what other districts have been throughout since 2004, showing where District 87 falls. By far, this is the biggest district. It has 1,200, almost 1,200 parcels in it, and by virtue of the size, it has a huge $20.4 million assessment amount. Now, just to go briefly over the balloting procedure, the property owners vote yes or no. The vote is weighted by the assessment amount. The ballots are due here at the public hearing, and they need to be turned in before the end of the public hearing. And only ballots that are submitted will be counted, and they stay sealed until after the public hearing. The city clerk's office will be officiating the ballot tabulation. We're going to be, just so you know, in the fire conference room, and it is open to the public. We would ask that we limit the number of public in there because we have to have room to actually do the tabulation. We received, I believe, over 1,000 ballots back of the almost 1,200 ballots, so we had an excellent return. But we need 50% approval is required, weighted by that assessment amount. If more than 50% of the assessments vote no, then the district cannot be formed. Otherwise, the decision comes back to you, the city council, on whether or not to form the district. Now, if this is approved in early May, notices of assessment will be mailed to all the property owners, basically saying, congratulations, the assessment is approved, you owe us this much money, and you have two choices. You have 30 days to pay it off totally in cash, and if you do that, you'll get a discount of that prepaid financing amount, so you'll get a 13.25% discount, or you can let it ride, and it can go on your property tax bill, and you can pay it down over time on your property tax bills, and the amounts will be shown on that notice of assessment. Late June, we estimate that we're going to be selling bonds. In estimating July or August, the construction will begin. It'll be about a 4-year construction duration. If people let this go to the property taxes and let it go to bond, then when they get their property tax bill in September or October, they're going to see a line item on that property tax bill with their payment on it, okay, their annual payment. On-site conversions are going to be done after the undergrounding is completed, probably 2 to 3 years away, and we're asking property owners to not start the work before notified. The city will notify the property owners when it's time and give them plenty of time to get the work done. So, but it's going to be obviously a very public process. There's going to be a lot of communication with public works staff, and we're going to try and keep everybody as notified as possible. On these private service conversions, those are not included in the assessments. Additional costs to the property owners are going to be trenching on the private property to service laterals, conduits on the private property, service panel replacements. Their service panel replacements are recommended. They're not required. A lot of people think they are required. It's recommended, but not a requirement. The estimated costs range from $2,000 to $5,000. Some people can get it cheaper than that. Some, depending on what type of work is out there, what kind of hardscape, might be a little more. And this, again, is after Edison installs all the underground conduits. And the city is recommending to the property owners that 3 bids and references are received to make sure you get the best deal out there. Now, some questions have also come up about non-payment on the tax bill. If a property owner doesn't pay, the city will send a reminder notice to the property owners in spring of whatever year they didn't pay. And penalty fees will accrue with the county. Again, it's on the county property tax bills. If you don't pay your county taxes, you're going to accrue some penalties. Now, if multiple installments are not paid for multiple years, the city might send a demand letter. But again, there's bond contract requirements. The city has some flexibility in this. And in all the years you folks have been doing utility undergrounding districts, the city has never foreclosed on a property for non-payment of the assessments. So the next steps, conduct the public hearing, call for any remaining ballots, close the public hearing, and we'll go off and tabulate those ballots and bring you back the results before the end of the council meeting.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Any questions of the assessment engineer? Okay. Councilman Curry.
Just to be clear, though, the bond documents will prescribe that ultimately if somebody doesn't pay, that the city will be compelled to foreclose. Is that not how they're structured yet? Bond council's nodding yes.
Okay. Just one further point of clarification, just to reiterate what happened at the last meeting, the council discussed this. The city council voted not to vote the city's property, and Mr. City Manager, we have not voted our property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just some rules on how we're going to conduct the public hearing this evening. First of all, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and there's a box on the podium that has a green and a yellow and a red light. You have 3 minutes to start. When the yellow light comes on, you have 1, and when the red light comes on, your time is up, and we would appreciate if you would cease your comments at that point and kind of try and keep an eye on the little box that sits on the podium there. Well, one thing I want to say is I know there's a lot of emotions on both sides of this issue, and this is serious business that we're doing tonight, so we would appreciate it if we didn't have any applause or other displays of approval or disapproval over any comments made by any of the speakers. That helps the meeting go smoother for us. When you come to the podium, we ask that you identify yourself, and also very important, your property, so give us your property address as well as identifying yourself. And I will request that anyone who wishes to come forward and speak, they do that whether they're in favor or against the acquisition of the improvements, the assessment district itself, the underground utilities district, or the method of the spread of the proposed assessments. So at this point in time, I'll invite anyone who wishes to speak in favor or against the assessment district to step forward, please. Yes, I did. 3 minutes. 3 minutes is the time limit. Does anyone want to come forward?
Good evening. My name is Jim Maloney, and I reside at 314 Diamond Avenue, so a 300 block of Diamond. I'm also a homeowner on the peninsula in the Assessment District 101, so I'm going through the undergrounding right now. And just as a preface, I'll state that I'm in favor of the undergrounding, but what I'm here tonight to ask is that the city, if it does go through, if the approval goes through and the project proceeds, that the city actually spend a little bit more time supervising the contractors. We're writing the checks to partially pay for this. My experience on the peninsula in Assessment District 101 has been nobody seems to know what's going on down there. They ripped up the curbs and they put them back in, and now when it rains, the streets sort of flood with the water, and the water just sits there. I know they had this problem up in Costa Mesa, and it created a mosquito problem because the water just sits there. The other thing that I've experienced is when the Edison and AT&T come in and the cable company, I don't know if it's Time Warner or Comcast, they put their boxes in, but they don't spend a lot of time figuring out which box goes to which house. So like today I was meeting with Ed Holtz and calling Iris Lee to discuss the fact that they forgot to put a box at the sidewalk in front of my house for my house. So everybody's out there scratching their head trying to figure out where the box is, and there is none. And I'm paying these other subcontractors, my electrician, to do the digging, except when they go to put the pipes in, there's not a conduit box to put it into. And I just really think that it's incumbent upon the city to spend a little bit more time than a single roaming inspector like, Ed Holtz going out there looking to see if the PVC plastic is thick enough. The peninsula was bad, and I think we'd all agree that the island is a much more difficult, much more narrow situation. I'd also call the council's attention to the Daily Pilot article where there were trucks banging into houses. I just think if we're paying for it, there just needs to be greater supervision and oversight. If you do a project on your own house, you oversee the contractors, and it's simply not a job that the individual homeowner has any authority or ability to supervise. So that's all I would ask.
Okay,
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Brian Ozonian, 1107 Balboa Avenue. I have the clear distinction of having the smallest lot on the island. I'm the bottom line up there. I have several concerns, of which 3 minutes won't be enough, but I've written you a letter explaining a circumstance or a scenario whereby a fixed income person has to shoulder the cost of private property expenses. I still have that concern. I'll just say this kind of like a bottom line. I think if this passes, what you are about to do is initiate chaos. I have a family that has a home on the peninsula. We went through the undergrounding only because we're contractors. For 35 years, can I say it was better. Ended up having the sidewalk torn out and redone, just like the previous speaker was talking about. Public Works has a duty to perform to specifications, just as private property owners have a duty to perform to specifications. The presenter talked about a panel is recommended. There's no UL panels that are approved for overhead that work for underground. They have to be changed, and your inspector will force that change. If you are a new resident with a new home, you probably have a combination panel that's underwritten by UL laboratories for above ground and underground, but those are few and far between. I really think you underestimate the problem with building an underground project on a boat. You're talking about safety. I'm seeing all kinds of things about transformers going to explode and the scare tactics, which really are a disservice to the community. However, you have a water problem. You have a direct conflict with seawater that rises above the underground. And also you have a problem because there's a 3-foot minimum burial of electrical work on private property. It's going to interfere with all the utilities that go down our side yards. And many of them are ancient. They're fine if they're left alone. They're all going to be disturbed when you take it up, and it's going to create chaos. Now, I myself have the phone numbers for all of the city departments that I can rectify a problem when the water ponds, because I'll suggest it comes out, and there will be an additional cost. I didn't see contingency to the numbers that I see, but you should have a contingency in there to 50% of what you're allowing, because there's going to be a lot of problems, and especially when you have the sewer work. It's not going to be a good place to live for 3 to 4 years. And it's not going to be a good place to visit. And I see nothing but a bad mark on the council names from this. It's going to get really nasty. And I don't mean this by a threat. I mean this because of 35 years as a building contractor, certain projects are planned well, and certain ones just don't go well because they're ill-conceived. And I see no safety hazard of what we have above ground, and I see a whole lot of problems ahead. And I'm glad it's on public record, because then I can come back and say, to much of my regret, I told you so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay. I will. You going to speak, sir? You know, anyone that wants to speak, if you'd come down here and line up so we can save some time here, I'd appreciate it.
If I may hand those to you. My name is Ben Schmidt. I'm a civil engineer. I've lived on the island now for 40 years, and we are on Pearl Avenue, 203 Pearl. My problem is that the reason we're voting against it, or have voted against it, is because I think that you have to look at the existing gas lines and water lines down all the alleys. They've been there for over 60 years, and when you start putting in the underground utilities for power, electricity, and the cables, you have to look and see what will happen to those lines. And as we see on Little Island, they've cut 3 to 4 foot wide trenches and then paved it with concrete after the work was installed. But if the water lines and gas lines and sewer lines in those alleys do not have a prolonged life, then it's time to take out the slab totally, replace those that are required, and then pave the entire alley rather than doing one strip.
Okay, thank you, sir.
My name is Mr. Borland. I've been on the island for 35 years. I think this whole thing is betraying the public trust. It's an alley. Everything's in an alley. I came down Newport Boulevard today, and it's all overhead. How do you fix lines underground? I work for Giles Electrical Construction, City Wholesale. The plastic won't last more than 25 years. To dig up that beautiful concrete, to put it underground in an alley. Now you can hook something up. It can be fixed. You're putting 220 volts in there, DSL, phone lines, all in a place that has beautiful concrete, and to charge the people for the hookup. This is betraying the public trust. I don't care what they vote. You people have a responsibility in this economy not to put the burden on. I'm a disabled veteran. I've worked all my life, 21 years in the United States Army, Mr. Mayor, and I have a certain income, and this assessment is a minimum amount of what's going to be charged. And people that think that they've got their millions and millions of dollars, and half the people that work for the city couldn't buy a house on Balboa Island now, but to assess us again for an alley. If Edison wants to come out and change the poles and make them look aesthetic, let them pay for it. But to take stuff and put it in the ground where the pipes, the plastic pipes, won't last more than 25 years, we're back in the same problem. You're going to dig, jackhammer, and the whole routine's going to go on, and we're going to get a strip of concrete down the center that looks terrible, if we're talking aesthetic. It's an alley. It has pipes. It has poles. It's an alley where garbage people go down, where trash cans are out there. How much aesthetic do we need? We don't need another expense for the people of the United States of America and Balboa Island. I think this is betraying the public trust to even bring this up, that they want to put their utilities underground, and all these years, it's done fine. You come up, they get it assessed. Poor guy here has a guy, we don't even know where to put the box in. We don't have the greatest contractors. Great, we're doing this because we got a person who says the economy's a little cheaper, we're going to jump on it. We don't need to put utilities underground in an alley. I thank you. I bid you good night.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Again, it's the last chance to submit ballots. Anyone that wants to submit a ballot, please come forward. Okay, seeing no one, close the public hearing. City Clerk, go off and do the counting of the ballots, and we'll go back to the regular agenda. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but please be as quiet as possible. Okay, we'll now go to the next item on our agenda, which is presentations.
Where's the accounting, please? Where do we go to watch the accounting?
The Fire Department conference room. Okay. The man with the ballots. A lot of people there. Okay. Let's see. Presentations. Oh, here we go. Okay, our first presentation this evening is the presentation on the 1951 police car. Lloyd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You always seem to be presenting this in the middle of chaos.
You know, last week I was competing with Jay Leno, and I think everybody went to Jay Leno. Tonight it's Dancing with the Stars, so I don't know if you can win or not. Anyway, I'm back again, and I'm doing a presentation on the 1951 Ford that is restored now. It's 90% done. The siren has been installed. The red light's been restored. It's getting ready to be installed. So we're about ready. We have a police car. Somebody said that, probably be the only one the city has, a 51 Ford. Anyway, in 1951, the city of Newport Beach had 51 Fords that were bought from Theodore Robbins Ford. And so we found this car, has 63,000 original miles, found it back in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And this has kind of been a project that I've been interested in. As you probably know, that I was involved in doing the fireman's grill for the fire department, the fire truck that they restored down on Balboa Island. So cars are kind of my thing, and this, I think, is a project that we can do something for our police department. This is something they can use in recruiting. They can use it in their youth programs. They can use it in community events and parades and things like that. But I think it's something that's saying thank you to our PDs, our men and women in the police department that work for us. So I would hope to get support. We're looking for $12,500. The value of the car is, I had a call from somebody and they said, would you guys like to sell that car as a police car? And it would go to Sweden, $25,000. So the value is there. We're asking for $12,500 from the city of Newport Beach, and we've been able to raise approximately $4,000 to this date. Several of the council have helped. Lula Halfacre has, with Traditional Jewelers, has donated graciously. And where I'm at right now is we need to raise the balance of it. It'll go, the checks would go to the city of Newport Beach. They are tax deductible, and you can mail them either to the city of Newport Beach or to the police department. But at this point, I think it's something that, you know, the community ought to step up and do something for our police department. That's my feeling. So I'd like to have your support, and thank you all very much for your help.
Okay. Thank you, Lloyd. Okay, our next presentation is recognition of the Beckstrand Cancer Center's or Foundation's 35th anniversary. Is there someone here to receive this proclamation? Step up to the podium, please. Okay, whereas more than 10 million Americans are living with cancer and more than 1.4 million new cases will be diagnosed this year, and the City of Newport Beach supports efforts that help increase public awareness of cancer and the unique needs of cancer patients, and there are community-based programs that can improve and enhance the quality of life of local cancer patients and their families, and Dr. Grant Beckstrand recognized the significance and importance of his patients' non-medical needs and formed the nonprofit organization Beckstrand Cancer Foundation in 1974 to provide a solution to the financial burden of cancer and its treatment. And Beckstrand Cancer Center Foundation is based in Newport Beach and will celebrate a new milestone 35th anniversary in the community. And I encourage all Newport Beach residents to work together in support of ongoing assistance to area cancer patients and to develop a greater understanding of cancer. Now, therefore, I, Edward Selich, Mayor of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby proclaim May 3rd, 2009 as Dr. Grant Beckstrand Day in the City of Newport Beach. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Newport Beach to be affixed this 28th day of April, 2009. Edward Selich, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Okay, our next presentation is Proclamation to Recognize Municipal City Clerks Week. This is your first one. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and the office of municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. Is that true? Didn't know that. And the Office of Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meeting of their state, province, country, and international professional organizations, and it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, I, Edward Selich, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, do recognize the week of May 3rd through 9th as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our Municipal Clerk, Leilani Brown, and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform in their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Newport Beach to be affixed this 28th day of April, 2009. Edward Selich, Mayor.
I would point out that although it's the oldest office in the state, we don't have the oldest city clerk in the state.
I was just wondering, did the city clerk come before the tax collector?
No, the tax collector was in the Bible, wasn't it?
Just real briefly. Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, thank you for this proclamation. On behalf of my office and all the municipal clerks, I would like to express my appreciation for all the support we receive. And as a small token of our appreciation, please accept the official Office of the City Clerk pen, which states, City of Newport Beach, City Clerk's Office, serving the public with integrity and professionalism. Again, thank you for recognizing Municipal Clerks Week, and please always be kind to your municipal clerk.
Dave, do we have to report these on our statement?
We're always kind to our municipal clerk. Yeah, these are cool pens, too. Okay, our last presentation is a proclamation supporting the 2010 census. It's that time again. It's a very important function that our federal government carries out, and I think we're around 300 million people in this country, so a lot of counting to be done. That's a lot. Okay, this is a proclamation affirming the City of Newport Beach support of and partnership with the 2010 census. Whereas the United States Census Bureau is required by the Constitution of the United States of America to conduct a count of the population and provides a historical opportunity for the City of Newport Beach to help shape the foundation of our society and play an active role in American democracy. And the City of Newport Beach is committed to ensuring every resident is counted, and more than $300 billion per year in federal and state funding is allocated to communities, and decisions are made on matters of national and local importance based on census data, including health care, community development, housing, education, transportation, social services, employment, and much more. And census data determines how many seats each state will have in the United States House of Representatives, as well as redistricting of state legislatures, county and city councils, and voting districts. And the 2010 census creates hundreds of thousands of jobs across the nation, and every Census Bureau worker takes a lifetime oath to protect the confidentiality and ensure that data identifying respondents or their household should not be released or shared for 72 years, and a united voice from business, government, community-based and faith-based organizations, educators, media, and others will allow the 2010 census message to reach a broader audience, providing trusted advocates who can spark positive conversations about the 2010 census. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Newport Beach, California, number one, supports the goals and ideals for the 2010 census and will disseminate 2010 census information to encourage participation. Number two, asks its residents to partner together to achieve an accurate and complete count. And number three, encourages people in Newport Beach to participate in events and initiatives that will raise overall awareness of the 2010 census and increase participation among all populations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Newport Beach to be affixed this 28th day of April 2009. Edward Selich, Mayor.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council of the beautiful city of Newport Beach, my name is Gil Flores. I'm a partnership specialist. I've been working with a wonderful lady here, Tara Finnigan. And first of all, I want to thank her for getting us here tonight. I want to introduce Arnold Landau. He's the office manager for the Santa Ana Census Office here on Brook Hollow. And I also want to introduce Peter, where are you, Peter? Peter Nguyen, he's a partnership specialist for the Vietnamese community outreach, and Arnold's wife, Holly. On behalf of the census, I want to thank you and the city for giving us this proclamation, and believe by working together and having some events, we want to make sure that the city of Newport Beach and its residents is counted. So on behalf of the U.S. Bureau and Department of Commerce, thank you very much.
Thank you. And we want to keep our congressional representation in California, and every individual is going to count towards keeping that. We want to make sure we keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Notice to the public. The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the council. Speakers must limit comments to 5 minutes on agenda items. The council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones and pagers off or set them in the silent mode. Now is the time for city council announcements or matters which council members would like placed on a future agenda for discussion, action, or report.
Okay, thank you. Normally I go last on this, but just to make sure I don't get trumped on this particular announcement, I'm going to make it myself. And that is that we were notified late this morning that through Congressman Royce's office that the city of Newport Beach has been awarded $17.3 million in the federal stimulus program to complete the dredging of Upper Newport Bay. So it's something that we've worked hard and long for. And I know Dave Kiff has worked really hard on this, and he's not here to congratulate, but hopefully he can hear me, because I know that Dave's worked really hard on this, and really proud that we were able to secure this funding. It's a great contribution to our city. So with that, Councilwoman Gardner.
I would like staff to bring back a proposed resolution for us to discuss supporting the Equestrian Center at the Orange County Fairgrounds. Then I would also urge everyone who lives in Corona Del Mar to be aware of the marathon. And if you are on a street that has no parking for that period, which will be over by 7:30 in the morning, there are alternative parking places such as the Big Corona parking lot. 5 Crowns has some space, Honey Baked Ham. There are a couple others you can go on the website and find out.
That includes Bayside Drive all the way to Coast Highway, too.
Yeah, okay. And the yacht club there. Newport Yacht Club, I think, is offering their parking lot.
Sure, come on by.
And finally, Dave Kiff and I had the sort of fun of going for a ride in a hydrogen-fueled vehicle the other day. It was a Mercedes, although you couldn't tell it was such. It was one of the European ones, very jaunty looking. And we are going to have a hydrogen fueling station in Newport Beach at the corner, apparently, of Jamboree and San Joaquin Hills that's being proposed. And Newport Beach is one of 4 cities in Southern California being selected as a focus for hydrogen fuel infrastructure.
Wow, I'm getting one.
Well, they're not for sale yet. You can, because they're too expensive, I guess, but you can lease them.
In connection with Ed's announcement, I think that we need to also recognize Councilman Daigle's efforts in obtaining the money and her interest in the Bay. I think that she has worked with Mr. Gibb, as well as the rest of us, but she has spent a fair amount of time on trying to make sure that all of our politicians, as well as the community, is aware of the dredging needs.
Okay. Councilman Henn?
Yes, I have 2 things. On our agenda tonight is approval of the final contract for the flashing crosswalk at 23rd Street and Newport Boulevard, and I just can't let that pass without saying thanks to staff for getting that done. I think it's a terrific improvement to the safety of that area, and I've had numerous comments from residents of my district about it, so I think that's a pretty darn good solution, and I'm sure there'll be other areas in the city where we can move ahead with that kind of a solution. Secondly, June 12th to the 14th are the dates for the 2009 Invitational Regatta for the HOAG Cup, and we're really thrilled with that. I know we just got finished with Newport Ensenada, and that was a great race, but get ready again. These are the real racers that are going to be here on June 12th to 14th. This is a biennial event, and of course it's for charity, and it raised, I think, something like $400,000 last year for the benefit of the hospital, and we're looking forward to another good event this year. So June 12th to 14th, the HOAG Regatta. Thanks.
Councilman Rosansky? None, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Curry?
Thank you. The City of Newport Beach has a long-established practice of limiting the amount of money that can be contributed to a candidate for City Council. These limits were last reviewed in 1995, about 14 years ago. In the last election, several independent expenditure efforts were launched involving over $400,000 in independent expenditures. In one case, the expenditures of one man exceeded the amount of money ever raised by any candidate in the history of the city by approximately 2.5 times. Now, the law is clear that individuals have the right to spend what they may want to pursue their political aims, and I don't want to revisit the issues of the past election or its personalities. But in the future, I believe we should look at our current limitations and adjust them to both account for the changes in the cost of campaigns since 1995 and to allow candidates to better respond to independent expenditure attacks within the spirit of our law with clearly identified contributors. Accordingly, I'm requesting the city attorney bring before the council a draft ordinance that would raise our contribution limits to $1,000 per person and index them by the CPI for future elections. I believe this will reduce the impact of independent expenditure campaigns and encourage candidates to develop broad support across the city. In addition, in 1992, the voters approved a charter amendment that limits terms on the council to 2 consecutive 4-year terms. Measure P passed with over 80% of the vote. While I think most voters were very clear in what they thought they were voting on, I was surprised to learn that a potential loophole exists that could allow an incumbent council member to circumvent this term limit measure by resigning on the eve of an election and then running again. And rather than leave this issue for the courts to decide in the context of a specific candidate, I believe the city should act now to prevent this type of circumvention of the law. Accordingly, I'm also asking the city attorney to return to the council with a specific language to plug this loophole so that it will be clear that a candidate could not run in consecutive general elections for more than 2 4-year terms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is that the Don Webb initiative? Since I'm termed out and I will have served almost 2 terms, you don't want me to resign and run again?
I knew you wouldn't even think about that, Don.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to make sure you weren't targeting me.
Not at all. Not at all.
Madam Clerk.
Consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar, items 1 through 14, are considered by the council to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. The city council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the council, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and/or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Members of the public who wish to discuss the consent calendar item should come forward to the lectern upon invitation by the mayor and state their name and item number. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium.
Okay, Councilman Henn?
I have nothing.
Councilman Wozanski?
Nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Curry?
No items?
Councilwoman Gardner?
Nothing?
Councilman Webb?
I have none.
And I have nothing.
Staff has nothing.
Okay, does anyone in the audience want to pull any consent calendar items? Okay, seeing no one, I'll bring it back for motion.
Move the approval of the consent calendar, items 1 through 14, including the amended draft regular meeting minutes.
Okay, please vote.
Second.
Motion carries.
Okay, next is oral reports from City Council on committee activities. Councilman Gardner?
We'll be having a meeting of the Task Force on Green Building. We will be finalizing our proposal for the City Council. It will be next Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning in Council conference room.
Okay, Councilman Webb?
I have none.
Councilman Henn?
Yes, two quick ones. The ad hoc committee for group homes, I just wanted to report that we have 3 hearings scheduled very shortly here. On April 29th, Kramer Center, that would be tomorrow night, 4 p.m. here in the council chambers. The Kramer Center reasonable accommodation hearing will be held. On April 30th, the next day, here again at 4 p.m. in the council chambers, the BALBOA recovery reasonable accommodation hearing will be held. And then May 7th, we have scheduled the hearing for the use permit for 1115 West Balboa, which is an ocean recovery facility. And then secondly, the Economic Development Committee met on April the 15th and had a fairly full agenda. 2 things were concluded at that meeting. One is that the committee will be recommending to council the formation of a special event advisory committee that will help us do perhaps a better job scheduling and planning for our events in the city. And we had a good example of why that might be appropriate just this last week, where on the same night we had the Orange County Marathon kickoff event, the Newport Ensenada welcoming event and dinner, and the film festival kickoff, all 3 on the same night. And I can tell you that our mayor had a pair of track shoes on that night. He went back and forth all night long trying to make sure we did the right thing by all of those events. And so I just have to believe that we could benefit from some better coordination of our special events in the city. And then secondly, the Economic Development Committee also approved the formation of a committee of the Economic Development Committee, a subcommittee that is, to examine the possibility of having a summertime water taxi on the bay. And this is an idea that's been kicking around a long time. I think we've got 2 or 3 people on the Economic Development Committee, though, that'll bring some special attention and maybe energy to that issue, and maybe we'll find a solution. Thanks.
Okay. Councilman Rosansky?
Nothing, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Curry?
The Finance Committee met last week and reviewed the Facilities Finance Plan, which the Council will see in the context of our budget discussions coming up in the next few weeks. I think you'll be impressed by the level of diligence that staff has dedicated to this capital plan in order to try and show affordability as much as we can within our spending constraints for the important capital projects that we have coming up. But the Council will see that for policy choices and decisions as part of the budget process. In addition to that, the Finance Committee also heard a presentation about the impact of the California drought on water rates and on the rates that we're required to pay for metropolitan water, from whom we acquire a significant percentage of our water. Those are having an impact on our ability to sustain services throughout the community and to maintain our water system. And so you will see, as part of the budget, I expect, a presentation on potential water rate adjustments which have not been adjusted since 2005, coming forward to the council in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have no reports this evening. The next part of our agenda is public hearings. Number 15, we've already held the public hearing on the Balboa Island Assessment District, and we're awaiting the ballot count on that, and we'll take that item up once the ballots are counted. In the meantime, we'll move on to item number 16. That's adoption of the resolution forming the Newport Beach Tourism Business Improvement District and setting the assessment to be levied. Do we have a report on this from the staff?
Mr. Mayor, just a very short report. The Tourism Business Improvement District would consist of 6 requesting hotels. These are the largest or larger hotels, and the Conference and Visitor Bureau. This is the second public hearing. The last one was on consent. So since this is the last really public hearing, and also there's a resolution for you to approve tonight, I thought I would make this a part of the regular public hearing process, just in order to make sure that we went through the whole process very cleanly. Gary Sherwin is in the audience if you would like a report from him.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Councilman Gardner.
No, I would just move the action.
Second.
Okay. I'll open it for public comment. Does anyone want to comment on this item? Okay. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back for a vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is item number 17. It's HOAG Memorial Hospital Presbyterian. It's the Development Agreement Annual Compliance Review. We have a staff report?
We do. Senior Planner Jim Campbell will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Homer. This is the annual compliance review for the HOAG Memorial Presbyterian Development Agreement. The development agreement was created in 1994. It was amended last year in May. We're here to look at HOAG's, whether or not HOAG's efforts are in good faith compliance with the provisions of the development agreement. Just a little background, there really haven't been any major projects this year, none initiated, none completed. HOAG has informed staff they're kind of reevaluating their building program given the current state of the economy. So some of the large projects that they contemplated last year are not on the horizon at this time. Some of the major DA provisions that we'll be looking at tonight are that were included in the amendment were the annual noise analysis, the exaction payments, the sales and use tax origins provisions. We've got some reimbursements for some landscaping and some energy curtailment provisions related to the cogen facility. I'm pleased to report that HOAG is in compliance with these provisions, and we can go through them in detail if you like this evening. There were a variety of other provisions that were included in the planned community text, and those were mitigation measures, mainly attributable to noise, and landscaping improvements for the lower campus. It's at least my evaluation based upon monitoring of them over the year, meeting with them on numerous occasions, and reviewing the permit record, that they are in good faith compliance with all of those new provisions. Now, there are a couple of items that are a little bit delayed, and I think we can just touch base on those. It was a sound wall that was being planned for the West Road near the loading dock area, about 450 feet long. HOAG has designed that wall. It's in plan check. It was supposed to be in and built by now. It's a little more complicated than we had thought. There's some utilities in the way, and we're working through those design issues and access issues. HOAG will be initiating the construction of that once the plan check process is complete, and that should be done within the next couple of weeks. So it's a little bit late, but definitely good faith compliance there, in my opinion. We do have some additional noise mitigation on the ancillary building that has not quite been completed. We're relocating an exhaust fan on top for the kitchen, as well as some of the sound wall around the equipment. Those two items haven't been 100% completed, but the noise consultant who prepared the noise analysis believes that once those two items are done, we'll have full compliance with the noise limitations in that area. We've got some landscaping improvements on the lower campus that are forthcoming. They were part of the planned community tax landscape program. They did receive Coastal Commission approval in February of this year, and some of the improvements need to be completed within 60 days, some 120 days, and some by the end of the year. All of those improvements we can discuss in more detail if you like, but they're all been planned and scheduled to be completed on schedule. Maybe just in conclusion, well, there's actually one other issue, is really at the loading dock. There are two mitigation measures requiring some additional improvements at the loading dock area, and that is some sound-absorbing panels on the building, as well as some enclosures of trash compactor and moving the baler that's out there. Those have not been done. Those were planned and plan-checked and actually been turned into OSHPD for review. HOAG would like to have those set aside for the moment, and with the rationale that the sound wall that's being planned, approximately 40 to 50 feet away, would likely address the noise issues from those pieces of equipment. The recommendation the staff put forward is that we hold those other improvements in abeyance until such time as we can actually test the sound wall, see how effective it is. And if it is indeed, those improvements are necessary, we definitely would require them at that time.
All right, because that's not what the letter from Government Solutions suggests. It just says they're no longer necessary, nor are they feasible.
Well, I'm not so sure that I agree with necessary and feasible at this moment. I think at least the strategy that I'm proposing is that we hold those items in abeyance until the sound wall is done, because the sound wall will provide a significant measure of mitigation in that area. And if that's effective and we don't need those improvements because we've achieved the noise mitigation. Or
I understand, but you're not agreeing with that statement then. You're saying that we're going to wait and see if it takes care of it, and if it not, then we will proceed with
Precisely.
whatever. Okay.
If that's a mitigation measure, though, isn't that independent of the development agreement? Or is it somehow tied to the development agreement?
It's required by the planned community text. It's not tied to any particular building, so HOAG is obligated to put those improvements in.
I know that, but I mean, I guess I'm trying to make the connection of what does it have to do with the development agreement annual review if it's not a performance requirement of the development agreement, or is it? Or am I misunderstanding it?
Well, they actually are tied together. The development agreement requires compliance with the planned community text, and the planned community text is the regulatory framework, the zoning, if you will, for the property. So it is mandatory for compliance with the development agreement and the mitigation measures of the EIR. So, at this point in time, they are obligated to put those improvements in. I'm suggesting that we just delay those until we can really test to see if they're needed. And if they are needed, we can definitely put those in after the sound wall is put in and tested.
And Jim, that would really be a council decision then, would it not?
It definitely would be. From my review of the planned community text, we'd really need to amend the planned community text. So there would be an ordinance amendment. We'd have to do some supplemental environmental analysis to demonstrate that it's truly not necessary, and then we'd have to take actions pursuant to the Code Amendment and California Environmental Quality Act before we do that, and that would be within your purview.
Okay. Councilman Rosansky?
That answered my question. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a discretionary staff decision, that it would be coming back to council for action in the event that that was a recommendation of staff.
It would come back here. So.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Campbell?
I had a couple of the noise studies. There was one, and I'm trying to find, I thought I had everything marked, but I lose them. But one of them took the noise level and said, okay, it's over the requirement, what's allowed. But when you subtract the ambient noise or whatever it is, then it's okay. All right, that's fine. I'm not a noise engineer, but I want to make sure that that same standard was used in setting. You see what I'm saying? Are we coming up with a different kind of measurement with this subtraction that we didn't use before, and thus not really complying?
I believe we're using the same standard. Okay. I think that area is in relation to the ancillary building where we have a few missing improvements. It currently is over the limit, and it is the noise engineer's belief that once those are completed, we should meet that mark. Again, we'll be doing some subsequent noise testing at the next annual review to verify that once those improvements are done. But the standard itself hasn't changed.
I guess I'm talking about where it says once they subtracted the noise, the traffic noise, that we were then below the
traffic noise. I'm not sure of that one.
All right. Well, let me look it up while you're going on.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm done.
Well,
so
I'd
be happy to answer. I can look for that real quick. Sure.
And it may not just involve Jim, actually. It's a general question here. Section on page 2 of 6. It talks about the $150,000 that HOAG is going to be paying for landscaping and irrigation improvements to Sunset View Park. Have we
made any preparations to begin those improvements or to budget for those? And is there any reason why we're not doing that, or should we be doing that?
I apologize. I don't think I heard the first part of that question.
Well,
Would you mind repeating it?
HOAG is supposed to give us $150,000 for landscaping and irrigation improvements to Sunset View Park. So they haven't given us the money because we haven't made any improvements. My question is, when are we anticipating making those improvements or starting that process?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't think we have that scheduled.
Okay, well then, my request would be that we start looking at that.
Are you referring to the section of the park that's above the HOAG facility? Is the Sunset View Park? Or are you
I believe that's the area there. Not Sunset Ridge Park, but the...
Okay, so the improvement of kind of the vacant area
Yeah.
down...
There's also that additional parcel, that we bought from Caltrans that
Right.
is sitting there that's unimproved. So I would suggest that maybe coming up with our budget discussions and CIP plans, and money's tight, but here's $150,000 that, courtesy of our benefactors at HOAG.
I have.
Councilwoman Gardner?
Yeah, I found my thing. It says on page 2 of the executive summary that daytime measured dock activity and general traffic-generated noise levels exceed the maximum LEQ 65 noise level specified in the planned community text. Vehicles, however, are specifically exempted from the applicable noise standard. To deduct the noise contribution of traffic, then we get to the right level. So is that the same thing we've always done? Is that consistent? I just want to be sure we're not suddenly subtracting something to help make the level.
It's my understanding that we've used the same standard, and it is an appropriate method. The sound wall actually would do the mitigation for the noise.
Right. I understand about the mitigation, right. So that was question. And the second question was back on page 20, when they were doing measurements of the ancillary building rooftop mechanical equipment. And they said the kitchen grease exhaust fans were not operating during our test. And do we have any idea how that might impact the outcome?
Those actually are going to be relocated, and that's part of the mitigation strategy.
Okay.
It's been permitted by OSHPA. They're going to be moved away, and the fans turned to a different direction. And so that actually will be addressed with that project.
So they will be measured at a certain point and make
Yes,
sure
it
that
will.
they will meet that.
Yeah, once all those improvements are done, as part of the annual review for next year, we will have testing done to verify, and we'll take up other measures if necessary.
Councilor Rosansky?
Would you anticipate that by our next review period, that virtually all of these items should be done at that point, that HOAG will have had enough time to work through the permitting processes, work through their whatever internal processes and the construction? And so, I mean, would I be wrong in expecting that next year when you come in front of us and make this report, that all these items will be checked off and it won't be, well, we're waiting for something else?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, I'll open the public hearing, and I'll invite the representatives from HOAG to step forward, if you so desire.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Dennis O'Neill, and I'm here along with some other representatives from HOAG. We really have no presentation. We're here to answer questions if anything comes up. Thank you very
Any
much.
questions of HOAG? None at this time, but hold your horses. Okay, anyone else want to address the council on this issue? Okay, seeing no one, yeah, absolutely. This is the time. Thought you were here just to watch. Should have known better.
My name's Eric Thurner. I'm a resident of Villa Balboa. First, I'd just like to thank the council for holding this first annual review. This by itself is a big step forward, and we're appreciative of that. We would like to acknowledge that there's been a lot of progress made, I think, by HOAG in implementing many aspects of the development agreement. However, at this time, for reasons that we recognize are not entirely within HOAG's control, many of the mitigation programs, such as the loading dock, some of the lower campus landscaping, and even some aspects of the plume mitigation program or project are still in progress. So we feel it's hard for us to comment definitively as to whether HOAG is in compliance with all aspects of the development agreement. But that said, we look forward in the months ahead to the completion of all these different projects that are currently in some state of progress. And at that time, we look forward to offering our observations and comments on compliance to the City Council. There were a couple things that residents have raised recently that we'd just like to bring to your attention. These are areas that we hope the city and HOAG will work with us on to address. Just very briefly, one is lighting. There was a lot of progress made in reducing the amount of light that comes from the lower campus parking lots up into the park and into the residences. Specifically, the light bulbs were changed from 400 watts to 200 watts. But many residents still feel that the light is excessive that comes from the lower campus, and I think the problem is made worse by the fact that they're left on all night, even though most of those parking lots are empty at night. So we hope that HOAG and the city will work with us to explore further mitigation measures for the light problem, and this could include just turning off part of the lights after a certain hour at night. The second issue is that there's still a noise issue with the cogen plant. A lot of residents can still hear the cooling towers pretty much 24 hours a day. And there was an expectation, I'm not sure where this stands, that perhaps there would be a sound wall built down near the cooling towers. And I certainly think that would be a very positive step to consider because of the amount of noise that goes into the park and that drifts up to the residences. And lastly, and Councilman Rosansky already raised this, we would like the city to move forward as soon as possible with landscaping the so-called consolidated view park, which is that currently it's kind of a unimproved dirt mound right now with some scrub brush behind the cogen plant, but there was a provision made in the development agreement to landscape that, and we'd love to see the city move forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Okay, I'll close the hearing, bring it back to council. Councilman Rosansky?
Well, obviously we're further along than we were a year ago. There's still ways to go. As I mentioned earlier, I'm hoping that when we have our second review of this new amended development agreement, that virtually all of these items will be taken care of. I understand that, there's a lot of permitting authorities, including our own city, which has raised issues and maybe dragged our feet a little bit. But these are real issues. They're real issues for the folks that live over there. They're real issues for HOAG and their employees. And so, I'll make the motion that we, I'll make the motion that we accept staff's recommendation here with the understanding that next year we're going to have a much shorter staff report because it's just going to say complete, and there's not going to need to be any explanations of why they're not complete. Also, the one other thing that's missing here, actually I was just thinking about it, is the fence, which is not supposed to be put in, but I'm expecting to see that fence go up this year at some point in time along Coast Highway. That's going to screen the construction yard on the lower campus. So with that, I'll make that motion that we accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Gardner, do you have a comment? Okay, please vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Public comments. Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Okay, do we have any public comments this evening?
Good evening. My name is Peggy Fort. I'm a resident of Newport Beach, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Board of Directors for the VIII Marathon to invite the community to attend the 5th running, which takes place this Sunday, May 3rd, bright and early at 6:30 a.m. We're expecting approximately 10,000 runners total, with 2,000 full marathoners and 6,000 half marathoners. The event will take place starting at Newport Center, adjacent to Fashion Island, run through Corona Del Mar to the harbor area on Bayside Drive through to Back Bay, before running into Costa Mesa and finishing at the OC Fair and Event Center. We would like to, first of all, just thank the council for their support and commend the city staff for a phenomenal job working with the marathon leadership team and getting this new course approved. The spirit of the community and the neighborhoods that the marathon course will run through are what set a great marathon apart from an average one. And this new course is headed in the right direction. So we're really excited. If anyone out there wants to give it a try, they can still sign up for the marathon or the half marathon or 5K through the expo this weekend. And we hope to see the council out at the VIP hospitality tent on Sunday to cheer on the finishers. So thank you again for everything, and we'll look forward to Sunday. It should be a very special day.
I'd like to thank the committee, the board, because you've been very responsive to what we've asked in terms of making it as easy as possible on the community. You've really followed up on everything I've asked, at least personally, you to do as far as parking lots and that sort of thing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to continued business. Item number 18, council review of staff status progress report on 6 of the City Council's 2009 priorities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it seems like the movie Groundhog Day, that's because it probably is. We have done this before numerous times, and we will continue to do it until we get it right. So we have the, last month we did the first 7 City Council priorities, so this month we're looking at the second 6, because we have 13 this year. So let's jump right into it as soon as Steve can find it on the computer. Do I know where it is? No, it was supposed to be loaded this afternoon, that's all I know.
I got it.
Okay.
I just go wait for the projector to come up here.
But let me get started rather than waiting for that. I mean, we will pick it up. But the first one is to continue to implement an effective traffic management plan by a variety of projects which improve traffic flows throughout the city. This is certainly a very high priority of the City Council. A couple of things that I would like to point out since the beginning of the year is, and Steve, if you can keep on rolling, the Phase 1 project was completed and operational March the 15th, which was in accordance with our time frame. Phases 2 and 3 were approved by council. The construction contract was awarded April the 14th, and we are still looking at a completion date of December the 31st. Next up is phases 4 and 7. Phase 4 is Superior. Phase 7 is Balboa Boulevard. So we are, I think we're in design right now for phases 4 and 8. And that keeps phases 5, 6, and 8 to be discussed, and we will discuss those 3 phases during our budget discussions, starting not at the next study session, but probably the study session item on the 28th, to see if that's something that you want to move up or add to. But we have budgeted 4 and 7 in this upcoming budget year as far as construction. So I think that takes care of that. The City Council will approve a new CIP budget on the 23rd of June. That is your last, that's when you will adopt the complete budget along with the CIP budget. So I think we're pretty much on track with what we were committed to on that one. If there are no questions, we'll go to the next one, and that's complete the schematic design phase and the EIR for the new City Hall and Park site. So glad to show that all of the actions that we started out with in the new calendar year, hiring the City Hall and project architect, hiring the project manager, hiring the EIR consultant, completing the concept plan phase. Council did that at your last council meeting. So what remains for this calendar year is complete the schematic design phase, and we are anticipating that will be on November the 24th. I will point down here in the fine print that the notice of preparation was distributed on April the 1st. That 30-day closing period will be April the 30th, so we are, close to that particular date, and then the EIR will be disseminated. Is that right? I'm sorry, it'll be prepared. That's right. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Schedule.
Yeah, I know it. If there are no questions, we will go to the third one that we will be reviewing tonight, and that's provide more public parks and recreation facilities with emphasis on active facilities where appropriate. And that includes the construction of a new Oasis facility for our seniors. So we have lots of projects here to report on Sunset Ridge Park. I think where we are right now is expecting environmental clearance on June of 2010. City will process the EIR, so Sharon, if you could help me out on that one, where we are on the EIR?
We are close to releasing the notice of preparation. I know I reviewed one draft of that, but I haven't seen the final yet.
The next project is Marina Park, and we are looking at the City Council EIR hearing May-June timeframe, so we are on target to meet that. And environmental clearance is still expected this fall. No questions with that one. Going to the next sheet of projects is the Coastal Peak Park. So we are on target. We are in our 120-day construction company maintenance period. That runs from March until June. So that's a 90-day period. Then the city will assume the park for a 90-day period, and then it will be open to the public in September of this fall. So we are on track with that. Oasis rebuild, you're very familiar with that. Demolition took place last week over the period of about 2 days. You awarded construction, and we are under construction now, and we're anticipating that the construction will be completed in 2010. But basically, we have completed our action steps there with the exception of construction for this calendar year. Banning Ranch Community Park, we have a Banning Ranch priority, so it really depends upon what happens with the Banning Ranch, whether it will be open space or whether it will be a development. So we have to let that process run its course, and we will know more about that as time goes on.
I thought that we were at least going to do some schematic very preliminary plans on that, so that, because we're talking about a community to park, whether it is open space or development, and have we gotten at least a concept plan in line?
Well, I can probably speak to that. As part of negotiating the development agreement, Councilman Rosansky and I have been working with the Banning Ranch people who have done some concept diagrams who have submitted to our parks and staff, and so we're kind of going back and forth on that now.
We did include in here synthetic turf study. I think Council is very familiar with that. Our study is taking a little longer than we thought it would. PBNR has become involved, and they're very interested in this. So we're looking at a presentation to PBNR in July and a presentation to the City Council around the August timeframe. CYC renovation is ongoing right now. We expect that project to conclude towards the end of June, although we ran into some roof issues. And Steve, I'm not it'll probably take us longer if we have to do much repair of the roof there.
Yeah, actually, we're looking at maybe the proper solution might be to just button all the work up and in the next budget just do a separate roofing project, and maybe we'll do that and start at the end of the summer and try to get that done before the rainy season.
Okay. And you said there's going to be some outreach to the neighboring residents as far as...
Yeah, I saw an email today regarding the issue you raised as far as some trees being removed and new ones planted, and I understand that there are going to be some meetings taking place with some concerned residents. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, because I just got a call, and they asked me questions, and I was like, I know what's going on inside the building, but I didn't know what's going on outside. So.
Yeah, representatives from General Services and Public Works will be meeting with one of the concerned residents tomorrow morning to discuss the plan and what kind of options and explain. We are apparently taking out 6 mature trees, but we're also putting back 8 trees in the parking lot area. So we feel that the reason why we're doing this project is essentially to improve the safety. As you know, it's kind of one of those parking lots that's kind of tough to maneuver in. We're trying to change it so it has a turnaround at the end, and all the parking is diagonal to minimize the backing. And there's a lot of children drop-offs and pickups that happen in that parking lot, and this will improve the safety. And as well, it'll probably add 3 parking spaces.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the safety issue is certainly an important one. I just think that we need to be as careful in our efforts to notify residents when something will have an impact as we require other people to do. We did such a good job with the Oasis, so let's keep that in mind.
Point well taken. The next priority is the priority dealing with the Banning Ranch, and I'll let Sharon take care of this one.
On the open space aspect of that project, the last time the council spoke about this, you decided that we should make our open space acquisition consultant, Dave Meyerson, available to the people who are interested in open space, and I did have that communication, and he had one brief conversation with one of the people, and then they weren't getting to him to take advantage of that opportunity. So there finally was a meeting scheduled with representatives of the Conservancy, but that has kind of slowed down his final report. We did, both the city and the Conservancy submitted applications for Measure M funding for Banning Ranch, and then at your last meeting, the City Council approved sending a letter with the city supporting the Conservancy's application as being essentially the same as ours, and we weren't competing for those funds. On the development side, we are proceeding with the EIR. The notice of preparation was released, and the public review period on that ended on April 17th, and so we are going ahead with that environmental impact report.
The next priority is to continue to implement water quality improvement projects while at the same time assessing the need to adopt a tiered water rate structure to assist in water conservation efforts. Where we are as far as the steps on this one is to update the city's water master plan, and that plan has been or will be updated this May. Now, there was a discussion at the Council Finance Committee on Friday about water rates, and as Councilman Curry said, that discussion will take place in the context of our study session budget hearings. So that information will be coming to you. And we are looking at what we have to do in order to live up to our master plan and make those improvements on a continual basis. So that discussion will take place probably in the first meeting in June. The last priority is to develop and implement a strategy including a funding component for the dredging of the lower bay. And it was really good news today to find out that the upper bay is going to be completed in its totality with the funding of the $17.3 million, because that kind of turns the Army Corps loose to now be talking about the lower bay. So it was a big day today, not only for the upper bay, but hopefully for the lower bay also. So Colonel Magnuson is going to be in Washington next week, and he is going to begin talking up the lower bay dredge project. Right now, the city is currently testing, and the CAD analysis is taking place. So that is what the Army Corps wanted to happen, was for us to tee it up for them and to fund some initial activities, which would allow them to say that the project is getting close to being shovel-ready. So I think we are, where we want to be on this, and today was really good news, and it seems like the Army Corps really intends to follow through. So I think this one, at least at this point, we positioned ourselves quite well. And that concludes my brief status report on these 6 council priorities.
Councilman Rosansky?
Yeah, I just want to quickly go back to one of the priorities on the public parks,
Yes, sir.
particularly Sunset Ridge Park.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one, didn't I?
I don't know. I had stepped out of the room, so
Oh, okay.
I wasn't clear. Huh? We have here environmental clearance for park based on EAR, target date of June 2010. That's over a year from now, and I've talked about it with Steve, I know, and others, and maybe it just keeps slipping through the cracks here, but I don't understand why we continue to show this date of over a year out to get an EIR done on a simple park project like that. Just does not make sense to me.
Well, I wouldn't call it a simple park project, but
Well,
but I would agree that a year
it's a much
is long.
simpler project than Marina Park, where we're taking out a marina, we're building buildings, we're building a park. Yet Marina Park's environmental clearance is expected in September of 2009. I don't know that they're much ahead of Sunset Ridge Park. So I just don't understand why we're talking about over a year out. That's ridiculous. We could start today and be done in less than a year. And, I don't know, maybe it's the environmental consultant we're using, but I think it's the same one that's doing the Banning Ranch project. So a lot of it should be
Well,
done.
the thing that is holding us up from starting at this point is that we don't have a clear project description with regard to the access road.
Okay, well, I think those ishes have been resolved.
I think
so-
we just recently were resolved, yes.
But even if they were not resolved, it just doesn't seem right that it's going to take that long to do that.
Now, I agree that EIR should not take that long.
Okay, when would you expect it, Sharon?
Because, be careful.
I don't know, because, excuse me, I haven't been actively involved in that one. I haven't seen the contract gazette.
When would you expect it, Steve?
Well, okay, I'll do the podium dance then. Well, I think, just talking with Dave real quick, we think we can beat that June 2010
I know you can
date.
beat it. I just wanted to win.
Well, now that we have all of the pieces of the puzzle in front of us, I think we can sit down with the environmental consultant. There was a report of gnat catchers in the roadway alignment, so we're going to have to deal with that. So I think our next step is probably to sit down with the consultant now that we have all the pieces of the puzzle and really come up with a new date. So I won't throw a date out there, but I think we can fine tune this and get you some better information.
Okay, well, this is going to come back in 2 months, right?
Yes.
All right, I expect to see a different date here, and I hope it has an 09 at the end of it, not a 10.
We should be well into the process.
Granted, we should be, but I just don't understand why it would take that long to do an EIR. If the consultant that we're hiring is taking that long, then we need to find a new consultant.
Particularly with the amount of money we're paying these environmental consultants, it's bordering on obscene right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have vowed that this project is going to be done before I leave council, but at the rate we're going, I might have to resign and run again for another term. Exactly. So, let's get this thing teed up. I mean, seriously.
Are you suggesting I try that?
I think I'm voting against your proposal, Keith. I'm sorry. I need to be on city council at least one more term, so I can see the end of this
We'll
part.
bring you back part-time.
Can you bring me back part-time? Can you rehire me?
960-hour limit.
Okay, that works for me. Thank you.
Well, it seems like we've been screwing around for 6 months on this access road. I think you and I have been on this thing for at least 6 months. So at 6 months, it's been wasted, and I just don't understand why the project description couldn't have been written 6 months ago, broad enough to cover what we're dealing in some of this stuff. I mean, at some point, these environmental things just get to be so ridiculous. It's maddening.
Well, I think in this case, it had the potential for significant change in what would be the biological impacts, what would be the grading. So.
And our EIRs do get a
Well, it
level
seems
of
to me you can just
scrutiny.
write the worst impact down, and then if you come up with a solution that makes it better, then you're doing better than what your project description was. But write the worst one down and move these things on. I don't understand why you guys do it the way you do it, to be honest with you.
Well, working with the worst alternative is going to
Okay.
guarantee you that it's going to take a long time.
All right, current business. I guess there's no, public comment. Any public comment on this? Okay, seeing none. And there's no action required on this one. We just review or receive and file. So the next item is the current business. It's approval of the 10-year agreement with the County of Orange for the disposal of municipal solid waste.
I will give this staff report, and Mark Harmon is lurking in the background here somewhere in order to give me assistance. But what is before the City Council tonight is an agreement between the city and the county, a proposed agreement between the city and county, for a 10-year disposal of solid waste in the county's landfill disposal system. So what the agreement provides for is that the county will provide the solid waste disposal locations, and this city, just like the other 33 cities in the county, will provide the solid waste for the landfills. So we give it to them, and they dispose of it. So right now, we're operating under another 10-year agreement that is set to expire June 30th of 2010. So this would be an agreement a year in advance of when our existing agreement expires, and it would not take effect until then July 1st of 2010. It's for a fixed rate per ton disposal. Right now, the fixed rate tonnage amount is $22 a ton. Under this agreement, it would go from $22 to $29.95 on July 1st of 2010, and then adjust annually in accordance with increases to the Consumer Price Index. I was on the City Manager Negotiation Committee over the last 2.5 years that negotiated this agreement with the county. There were a series of probably, I think, 9 meetings over those 2.5 years. And we started out our first meeting with the county proposing a per ton amount of $38. It's really a pretty complicated process to try and uncover and try and determine what is the right amount of reserves and the right amount of insurance when you're talking about landfills that will eventually need to be closed, and money set aside for closure, money set aside for monitoring that never ends. How big a liability fund do you need? How about solid waste that went to other landfills maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago? What kind of liability trail does that lead to the county? So what we did was hire an independent outside consultant who has expertise in landfill cost and landfill financing, and we looked at the county books for about 6 months, and we came up with a negotiation amount and negotiation points that we think would put us in good standing. And then the negotiations really got serious, and they concluded about 9 months later. But this same agreement is going to all 34 cities in the county. It needs to be adopted by 50% plus one of the cities in the county that contribute, I think it's 85% of the waste that goes to county landfills. So it's a little strange approval process, but this has gone before the city managers group in Orange County, and it was unanimously recommended for approval, and the city manager said that they would unanimously take it to their city councils. We would be one of the first to approve this agreement. But since I was on the negotiation committee and the rest of the city managers on the negotiation committee, we're going to go first and try and provide the leadership for the rest of the county. But based upon what I know and based upon the time that I spent in the last 2.5 years, I can with a good conscience recommend this agreement. The county has done a good job of providing locations, and we still have long-term storage that is available in this county, unlike a number of other counties. And LA County does transfer by train some of its trash to the desert. And we still have good capacity. That capacity is pretty well protected, we think, under this agreement. So I will just end it right there. But if you have any questions between Mark and I, we'll do our best to answer them.
Councilman Henn?
This is an up or down vote. I mean, we either like it or we don't.
Right.
So there's no real opportunity to tinker here. But I did have one small question with regard to the rate increase. It goes to $29.95, then adjusts annually in accordance with increases in the CPI. Was there any upper cap on that annual adjustment, percentage cap?
Let me see if I can find that. Let's see, it says annually by July the 1st by the Consumer Price Index, all urban consumers, all cities, based on the formula contained in the solid waste disposal. Let me see. I'm thinking it'll be on page 15 in the fine print here, because that's what talks about the rates. I'm thinking that's not that. Councilman Henn, I know we talked about that issue, and I can't remember how it's...
Well, look, it's not an important enough issue to hold things up here. I mean, we're not going to vote down this agreement because it doesn't have a cap, but it's just always a good idea to have that, so...
You know, I feel like it's in here, I'm just not...
Maybe you can send me an email later.
I will.
You know, that's fine.
I move the recommended action.
Okay, Councilman Gardner had a question? No? Okay, anyone from the public want to comment on this item? Okay, seeing no one, bring it back for vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is item number 21. It's the ratification of the post-retirement employment agreements. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this is number 20, and
I'm
we're
sorry.
here to talk about an issue that's come forward recently with respect to post-ratification agreements. As the council is familiar, there was a request for an investigation to our Civil Service Board by the Police Management Association. That investigation raised a number of different issues, two of which are pure legal issues. One is addressed in the context, briefly, of this report. Specifically, the issue raised was whether or not a post-retirement continued employment agreement, which was treated as being a type of side letter agreement between the Police Management Association and the city, was enforceable. We determined legally it was not. The side letter agreement was void. There was no force or effect and no ability to enforce it at law or in equity. And one of the reasons for that is that it was inconsistent with City Council Policy F20. F20 provides that any post-retirement agreement or returning employment agreement must be ratified by the City Council. In doing this analysis and coming to this conclusion, we then went to the departments to determine if there were any other employees of the city that had returned post-retirement that had not been confirmed pursuant to F20 requirements by the council. A number have, but we've identified 13 employees who have not been confirmed by the council. These 13 employees are employed largely from the police department, but there are also employees from library services and also from fire. I think many of these employees, if not all of them, are part-time employees, so that may be one reason why the departments didn't think that F20 applied, but it doesn't have that type of restriction. At this point, we've brought this forward asking the council and recommending that you ratify those employment agreements under F20 so that these employees can continue on as employees of the city on a part-time basis. And we're only talking about essentially for this particular budget term and are recommending that the employees be addressed in the upcoming budget concept coming this next year. With respect to other employees that have gone forward under the ratification or return to employment without ratification of the council, we're not recommending any action. There were 6 employees who went forward on the continued employment agreement side letter with the PMA. We're not recommending any action one way or the other regarding those. They are no longer with the city at this time, and we don't foresee recommending any action. With respect to the issue of the side letter agreement, we see no force or effect to that side letter agreement and no binding nature on the city whatsoever. If the PMA or other employees wish to attempt to renew or pursue that type of a benefit, then it would need to come forward to the council in the context of labor negotiations and would need to comply with CalPERS laws. In addition to this portion of the staff report, Terry Cassidy, our Human Resources Director, is here. She may want to address some of the CalPERS issues. And also the Chief of Police is here if you have any questions for him.
Just before we get started, I just have to ask, though, page 3, the first paragraph. CalPERS requires agencies to track the hours of post-retired rehires more carefully and monitor ? What are they supposed to monitor?
A little blip in the staff report
Yeah,
there.
I know. So my curiosity just forces me to ask.
I can tell you what that was. It was a comment made by Sharon Wood that I corrected but forgot to get rid of the question mark. And the issue is whether CalPERS, who does the actual monitoring regarding those excess hours and the hours involved, and our Human Resources Director has an answer to that question.
Okay.
The tag team answer is that we monitor not only the number of hours during a fiscal year to a maximum of 960, but also to make sure that the employees that we hire have the expertise that is necessary and qualifies under PERS.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do want to point out, though, that there were employees who were retired who have been employed by the city under professional services agreements. So this is not the universe of part-time retirees who have returned. You've seen those, and they have complied with F-20. These are the ones that are remaining that we thought needed to be brought to your attention, and therefore that, if you don't see the names of some other consultants who you know to be retirees, they've already been before you.
Okay. Well, then I had a question on here. I noticed one of the things is that it should be within a 5-year period of their retiring. And one of them actually exceeds that. So if we were going to approve them, would we have to make a second approval of that, or would that we just ignore that part of the policy, or how would that work?
You can ratify the action right now. Their individuals have actually been employed within the 5 years. What we want to do is clean up the current status of these employees, and I believe you'll be addressing their future status in the context of further discussions after post-budget.
So even though this person was hired more than 5 years after, we can still just say that's okay, we don't have to do anything special with that?
Right. I don't believe there's anything necessarily special this time.
And Terry, it's my understanding that all of these employees are part-time.
They are part-time.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilman Henn?
Actually, I don't have a question. This is a bit of an aside, actually. I noticed that the people on this list, there's mostly police department employees, at least a couple of which, one of which works in patrol part-time, and another one which might have some potentially dangerous assignment or vigorous assignment. And so I congratulate our police department for being able to take advantage of part-time employees in their department. And perhaps as we're getting to the budget discussion, Chief Lewis can explain once again why he can't seem to be able to do that with fire department personnel. Thanks.
Okay. Councilman Curry?
Move approval of the item. Second.
Okay. Anyone in the audience want to address the council on this issue? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for a vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we can go to item 21. It's review of the civil service system and other governing documents. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we are coming before you to do is to recommend the retention of an outside consultant, specifically Bruce Pratt, an attorney who assists with respect to personnel issues, and his law firm has represented the city in police-related issues in the past, to do a full review, what we would call a 360-degree review of our Civil Service Board rules, the charter, the Civil Service Ordinance, the Fire Department and Police Department SOPs, our employee manual, and to address, to look at the MOUs of our fire employees as well as our police employees. And our purpose for that is to make sure that all of those documents are consistent, that they meet with the policies of the city. And a difficulty and potential inconsistency arose in the context of the Police Management Association's request for an investigation for the Civil Service Board. In our review of the issues with respect to that matter, one issue was raised by the PMA asking about the propriety of the recruitment for the Chief of Police in 2007. In our review of those documents leading up to the actual recruitment, we determined, pursuant to a legal opinion that is set forth in the staff report, that not all of the requirements for the recruitment were actually complied with. One requirement that the chief recruitment be conducted as an outside and not closed promotional, but an open recruitment was not complied with. when reviewing all of the different documents related to recruitment of city employees, it becomes clear that they have certain ambiguities that have been developed. While the particular issue of whether it should have been an open recruitment really isn't subject to serious debate, there are issues that exist throughout the employment policies of the city that can cloud the issues. For example, the employee policy strongly encourages that we do internal promotional recruitments. The civil service rules and the civil service ordinance strongly favor internal promotional recruitments. We have those documents themselves that point in the direction of internal promotional, but the one exception to that is the chief officer recruitment, which is the fire chief as well as the police chief. And we want to look at all of our rules and to compare them to make sure that we are completely consistent and come back to you with recommendations. I would also point out that our civil service ordinance was passed by the people of the city of Newport Beach in 1958. There may be issues that the council wishes to address as being inconsistent with current personnel rules. You may wish to, at some point, evaluate the possibility of changing the ordinance or modifying or improving our civil service system. We are 50 years later in the process. There could be issues you wish to address. We believe that this consultant, particularly Bruce Pratt, will be able to assist in surfacing any issues to make us consistent with current personnel practices as well. I would also point out that Mr. Pratt is, in my opinion, an excellent choice for this particular task because he is well known for preparing police standard operating procedures. He has a standard operating procedures manual that's utilized by many departments throughout the state of California. He's worked with our police department on their standard operating procedures manual, and in fact there's a new draft for review and consideration by the Office of the City Attorney so we can assist, but that's based upon Mr. Pratt's standard operating procedures manual, and that gives him a leg up on the issue so he doesn't have to do other work that's not otherwise, that another consultant would need to take a look at. Once again, the Human Resources Director is here and present to address any questions you have, and also the Chief of Police is present if you wish to ask questions there.
Okay, any questions? No, don't see any. I'll invite anyone from the public that wishes to address the council on this item. Come forward. Okay, seeing no one, I'll bring it back.
I move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, we've run out of agenda items before the ballot counting is
Okay,
done.
so we sing, all right, this side of the room, row, row, row your boat.
So we'll recess until the voting is complete.
Do we have any idea what the status is?
Okay, 10-minute recess.
Waiting for Florida to
You like standing up
I
and
do.
moving around?
I'm an up stand-up.
You're
Okay, we ready? Okay, I'll call the council meeting back to order. We're going back to item number 15, the Balboa Island Assessment District. We've had the votes tabulated, and the city clerk is ready to announce the results.
Honorable Mayor and council members, based on the tabulations for the ballots received, 49.8% of the ballots were submitted in favor of the assessment district for a total assessment of $8,655,711. 50.2% of the votes were submitted in opposition for a total assessment of $8,713,158. Based on the ballot tabulation, the City Council should entertain a motion to direct staff to prepare a resolution abandoning the procedures if it is council's desire to do so.
Okay, can you elaborate on that last statement, Mr. City Attorney?
Yeah, yes, sir. The elaboration is that you have received a majority protest, and there is no provision under the current procedures in Proposition 218 that allows the council to overturn a majority protest. Therefore, you may not proceed forward at this time with the assessment district as formulated.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to direct the city staff to prepare a resolution abandoning.
May I make a comment, please, sir?
Sure.
Just a note, this was actually the closest balloting I've had. I would actually submit that I think I would feel more comfortable if we postponed a decision and let us clearly make sure we got it all right. Because we had a lot of ballots. We did have some that were not marked, not signed. Those are invalid. But of the ones, we want to make sure that because this is so close, that we actually are providing the correct thing. It is your preference, but this was really, really a close process. And we'd like to make sure that we got it all correct. But it's your call.
What's the difference in the valuation? No, the dollar amount, I understand.
It's roughly $60,000.
$60,000?
Yes.
$60,000 and a 501 yes votes to 505 no votes.
So you're basically saying if one ballot goes one other way, this could go the other way. I mean, $60,000, there's no lot that's valued at less than $60,000. Or,
Yeah,
I mean, or,
the
well,
average assessment's
two
$17,000.
assessment. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm thinking of something else.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I would just submit that I actually have not had one this close before.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would submit I've never seen one this close before myself. And I'm curious, we have bond counsel present in the audience. I wonder if he's experienced this situation before.
I've never had one this close either. But that said, I believe it is in the council's discretion whether they want to act on this tonight or not, or whether they want to have the assessment engineer go back and once again have a public counting of the ballots at a different time set and recount it back through and cross their I's, dot their T's, or the council could proceed as they wish tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I believe your motion was to direct staff to bring a resolution back to the council that we would act on in the future. So to the extent that there is additional information that's developed before we vote on that motion of abandonment, I presume there would be time for that to come forward as we consider it in the context of voting on your motion to abandon the proceedings.
Is that correct, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, you could do that. My concern is that we make sure that if there's a recount of that vote, two things happen. One is that they're kept in secure custody of the city clerk, and that we're sure any chain of custody issues I fully trust the city clerk, but we have to be able to certify there's been no changes in the ballots. And two, if there's going to be a recount, it needs to be done in public. So my idea would be is that we would need to say now, where and when, so that the public who would be interested can attend, and so they can confirm that the count has gone forward consistent with the law. Never having faced this issue before, but to be consistent with the law, which requires the public to have access to the count, I think that would be the way to do that.
And there's no provision in the law for a recount process. There's no procedures specified in the law.
No, sir. But there's none that says not to. I mean, it does say, it talks about the tabulation of the votes and how you weight the votes and such, and there's no provision that says recount or non-recount.
No, is there,
Well, we could. If there's a question on it, why couldn't you do a recount right now? Is there something that prohibits you from doing that, outside of being tired?
Tired. Half my staff is left, because the most time-consuming thing is taking the ballots out and sorting them. So when that was done, and we were just scanning them in, I let them go. So I don't think I have my entire staff up there to actually to do this efficiently. However, I would submit that as we're not preparing all those notices of assessment tomorrow, we actually have some time. If we wanted to set a time tomorrow where we could actually come in and do it tomorrow, we could do that.
It's an issue of notice to the public and things like that, though. I mean, these folks all stayed here a couple hours to hear the outcome of the vote, and certainly, I'm in favor of recounting, but I'm also in favor of giving them a fair opportunity to observe the count if that's what they so desire to do, so.
Mr. Mayor, if
I don't think tomorrow's going to work.
Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Rosansky that we need to make sure we provide the public the greatest opportunity to make that appearance, and setting it tomorrow might be difficult. But the council certainly has the ability to continue this matter to a date certain and a time certain that it chooses. Perhaps some 3 days is the right time. Generally, 72 hours notice under the Brown Act is considered to be adequate. That does give people a chance to clear their schedules and take that action. And if the council were so disposed to do a recount, that may be the most convenient way to achieve that, because then we continue this matter to a date certain and time certain, and we don't complete the action.
Yeah, but would we have to reconvene as a council at that point?
I would suggest it, because you will be taking, it won't have muddy the water on what your actual action is based upon the count that we're doing a revote. So if you continued the matter and took no action tonight on whether to terminate the proceedings for the district or not, set a rehearing at 3 days hence, or 2 days hence, but 3 days feels good. We recount, and then you take your final action on the matter, and you can certainly have with.
But we'd have to, the council would have to convene you'd have to call a special session of the city council to, on 3 days from now?
It would be a continued hearing, which is technically different than a special
Okay,
session.
well, whatever. We're all going to be here, is what I'm saying. We all have to come. Why won't we just put it off until our next council meeting? I mean, is there any reason to not do it? I mean, this way it gives them the most notice, and.
You could continue the matter to your next council meeting, and we could have the.
Yeah, I'm not here on Friday anyway.
We could also do it, next Tuesday's our off-council meeting. We could just continue it and just come and do that item only.
That would work.
You're out of town that day, too?
Yeah. So he's out of town. I'd just say to put it off till the next meeting.
Anybody else say anything?
No, public testimony is closed, sir. Okay, well, I think I would...
Well, you want me to make the motion?
Yeah,
I'll make a motion that we continue this hearing until our next council meeting on May 12th, I believe, where we'll perform a recount. Public will be invited to come back and observe the recount, and at which time the council will take final action.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Okay, this has been continued to the next council meeting. We'll be doing a formal recount at that point in time. Okay, that concludes our agenda this evening. Madam
Motion for
Clerk?
reconsideration. A motion for reconsideration on any item? Yeah. Okay. Taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Okay, any motions for reconsideration? Seeing none, we're adjourned.